guys, welcome back to Heart Breathings. I thought that since we just had a discussion about how I got back to my joy of writing, talking about my dragonfly story, that it would be the perfect time to talk about what I love most about being a writer, because this is truly the career where I belong and I love it. Not only just the process of writing, but the entire community that surrounds us as writers and the things we get to do as writers, especially being an indie author, meaning that I started my own publishing company and I completely 100% self-publish my novels. So let's talk about what I love most about being an indie writer. So I made some notes about this video and I did not go through specifically and put these in a list that was like the number one thing, the number two thing, because I feel like there's no way to really order these in a way that makes sense. So these are just 6 of the things that I love most in no particular order. So the first thing that comes to mind for me when I think about what I love about the process of writing is the fact that I feel with all my heart that writing is the closest to magic that I will ever get. I feel so excited in that moment when I'm writing and I'm not exactly sure, it's a struggle of figuring out where the story's going to go and I'm not really sure what these characters are going to do. And maybe I have a plan on paper where I think I know where the story's going, but there's always a moment where something clicks. And for me, I write young adult paranormal fantasy or contemporary fantasy. And for me, one of the most exciting things about writing is the twists. It's what I love as a consumer and as a reader. So I love to put big twists and cliffhangers and things like that into my fiction. So for me, I can have all these ideas about where the story's going to go, but until that twist moment clicks into place for me, I feel a little bit lost. And so I can take a long time trying to plot and a long time trying to figure things out. But sometimes I sort of describe it like, if you were trying to open a safe and you've got those little tumblers falling into place and it clicks and then you turn and it clicks again, or whatever. But when that last one clicks into place and you can turn the thing and open the door, that's what I feel happens in my brain, if that makes sense, when the story comes together. And a lot of times I can spend months like ruminating over a story and really thinking it through. But all it takes is just one blink of a moment where something comes together. So right now I'm working on Fate's Surrender, which is the 3rd book in my Eternal Sorrows trilogy. I have been working on this series, to be honest, for about 12 years. And I didn't publish the first book until 2013. Then the second one came in 2016. Now this one is not going to come out until 2020. So this has been the longest that I've had in between books for a series. But it's because this book or this series has 8 points of view. There's a lot of things involved. There's a lot of world building and decisions that go into it. And when I originally was working on this book for publication back in 2013, I struggled so hard to come up with how exactly I was going to end it, because I was kind of working on a previous manuscript and changing the story. And there was a moment where, and this isn't going to be a spoiler, but if you decide to read the book, it's called Death's Awakening, you will know it when you hit the end as to what happened. But there was a moment where I just saw a woman's hands, just like her fingertips, brushing the petals of red roses. And I thought, boom, that's it. And that little tumbler clicked and I was able to turn the door and just turn that key and open the door to the entire story. And that was a moment that just clicked. And for me, that is the magic of writing, because I feel like there's a moment like this in all of my stories where I may be confused, but as long as I continue pushing forward, I may sit there every day and be thinking, this story sucks, it's not going anywhere, my writing is terrible, the characters aren't coming together. But I trust now, after writing 25 novels, that there's going to be a moment, as long as I just keep pushing through, where the magic comes. And when that magic hits, for me, at least for me and my process, it's like the whole story unfolds and I can write it in a couple of days or a couple of weeks and it's done. And for me, that's the magic of writing, and I love it, and I live for those moments. Now, I just recently had a baby. She's only 5 months old, so I haven't actually finished writing a book in over a year and a half, and so I am ready for that magic to revisit me. So Muse, if you are listening, let's do this. So number 2 and 3 are kind of ones that go together, and they're sort of different sides of the coin. So they're all about creation and exploring things. So the second thing that I love about writing is the ability to explore things that have happened to me in new ways. So, you know, if I took a trip to Paris, then I could put something of my own experience in that trip into a book and explore it in a different way. So it's a way to explore that memory, to explore that city. Even if I've never been there before or I only briefly visited there, you get a chance to explore things that are within your own experience in new ways, if that makes sense. So you can have known someone who was a certain type of character, and then you can take that knowledge of that person or those experiences that you had, and you can recreate it on the page. And I don't mean like telling stories of actual things that happened to you, but I just mean like taking experiences that meant something in your life and being able to give them new meaning or new perspective by putting them on the page. So I've talked about this before, that I went through a certain kind of trauma when I was in Italy, and in my book, The Trouble with Goodbye, I explored that type of trauma as well as the experience of growing up in a small town where kind of everyone knows everything about you. So I was able to take my own life experience and put it onto the page with new characters and fresh perspective. And I really like that because it's a way for me to grow as a person, and it's a way for me to sort of process past experiences and, you know, really see them through the lens of different characters and gain better understanding over them. So the third reason that I love writing is kind of the opposite of that, but it goes hand in hand. So instead of being able to explore and reimagine things that are in my own experience or things that I know or have gone through in my life, I also have the ability to create entirely new worlds, new magic systems, new landscapes, new dimensions, new types of creatures if I want to. So for example, I have always loved the lore of vampires. It's just something, you know, let's face it, if you are a paranormal girl or a fantasy girl in some way, you or guy, you probably love vampires or have loved some kind of story involving a vampire, because one of the great things about vampire fiction is that it's so malleable. Like there are so many different types of legends. I mean, you can have really dark vampires where they're kind of all evil, or they're just blood-sucking, you know, almost humanless creatures. But then you can also have like Twilight, where they sparkle in the sunshine and have, you know, worries that they have no soul and love and, you know, all of these other things. So you can have light vampires, you can have funny vampires, you can have all different kinds of lore and legends surrounding vampires. But as a writer, you can also create your own legend and lore around vampires. So this will be not exactly, but kind of a little spoiler for my Shadow Demon saga. So if you haven't read it before, you'll get a little bit of an insight into the world building there. There is a spin-off series for my Shadow Demon saga called Sacrifice Me. And in this spin-off, I introduce vampires to my world in a way that is, I feel, kind of unique and different. So vampires in my world were never human. They were always demons. And in my world that I created, in order for demons to be able to cast in the human world instead of in their shadow world, in order to cast magic, they have to pull from living things around them. Whether it's human energy or the earth itself, they have to pull from the living things around them, which makes them very easy to track, because if they're in a battle and they're casting, everything pretty much dies around them because they're sucking that energy out. So vampires came from this need to go around in the human world and be able to cast and protect themselves without using up their magic. So they performed a special kind of ritual on anyone who wanted to become a vampire or any demon who did. And now those demons can drink the blood of witches and use the lifeblood that they store inside themselves as kind of their magical battery. So a little bit of a twist on demons and vampires there, like a little juxtaposition, but that's my take on vampires. And that's basically number 3 of why I love writing, is you can create those worlds for yourself. You can create however you want the magic system to work, how you want the world itself to work. You can put any type of magic into it. You can write all different kinds of genres. And there's just so much creative exploration that you can do about things no one has ever heard of before, that you're literally just creating out of your own brain. And that blows my mind, and I absolutely love it. And it's just one of the most fun things that you can do as a writer, is to just totally create new worlds. Now, I also have written, like I said, contemporary stuff where you don't get to create creatures and things like that. But in that case, you're still exploring and creating towns and relationships between people that you've never experienced yourself. Like, you could write an alpha male hero, even if you've never been one or been with one. You could create a character of a woman who is very strong and has been through all these things that you've never touched before in your life. You can write that and almost step into that woman's shoes by researching it and exploring that character. And I just love being able to do that. There is a famous Joss Whedon quote, and if you are not familiar with Joss Whedon, I don't know where you've been. Go look him up. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Firefly, The Avengers, tons of amazing things. But he has a quote where he says, "I write to give myself strength. I write to be the characters that I am not. I write to explore all the things I'm afraid of." And I always have loved this quote because I feel the same way about my writing. It's like you can give yourself that type of strength to face the past things that you've done, which is my second reason, but you also can be characters that you aren't and maybe grow as a person because you're learning to understand those people and that types of situations. And I write to explore all the things that I'm afraid of really speaks to me too, because I think that if you're afraid to write something, sometimes it's because there's some part of you that needs to write that. So there's a lot of really cool things about writing that you can explore, not only about yourself and your own world, but about the things that you could truly only imagine. So second and third things I love about writing. Number 4, some of you are going to laugh at because it is kind of silly. My husband was like, you can't include that on the list, but I'm including it because it is so true for me as a writer, less about the actual writing, like craft of writing, and more about the process of writing or the perks of being a writer. And that is stationery. So one of the things that I always loved growing up was different kinds of pens, colored paper, tapes, stickers, all that kind of stuff. And frankly, when I was a little girl, there really wasn't that much available. And I grew up in a house where we didn't even have air conditioning in South Georgia. So we definitely didn't have the money for, extra stickers and notebooks and things like that. So when I was old enough to become a writer and started to be able to afford to buy things on my own, that is something that I realized, oh my gosh, I love about writing, is the ability to have all of these amazing notebooks and, being able to use index cards and washi tapes and all kinds of things. Now, do you have to use stickers and washi tapes and markers and color-coded things to be a good writer? Of course not. But it's certainly one of the perks that you can buy all these things, enjoy them, and actually use them in a functional way in your writing to make things more clear, more fun, more motivating, and I just love it. So if you're a fan of this channel, you already know how I use all of my stationery, and I actually have a video coming up showing you guys a sneak peek into my kind of redesigned plotting notebook where I plot inside a happy planner, an old happy planner. So that's coming up hopefully this weekend or next week, and you guys know by now how much I love stationery and planners and that sort of thing. So I do also have a video that I'll link for you down below that is kind of more about my writing and editing process, where I show you really inside look at how I use my index cards and that sort of thing. So if you have seen that before and you'd like even more videos on how I use all my stationery in my actual plotting and story design, let me know. So reason number 5 goes back kind of to not only the writing craft of things, but also the business side of being an indie writer. And that is the fact that as a writer, you can be someone who is constantly learning. I think this is true for all entrepreneurs and for a lot of different careers, but at the same time, it is a particularly unique career where I don't think there's anyone who could ever say that they are the best writer they'll ever be and they'll never learn anything more, or there's no need to learn anything more. And I think that it's very sad if you're a writer who does get to the point where you say, well, I'm the best in the world and I could never get better, because the truth is you probably are never going to be the best you're ever going to be, because you can always learn more. Stephen King himself says that he's just a newbie at this, and that the more he learns, the more he realizes he doesn't know. And I totally feel the same way, because, you know, if I look back at my first published book, Beautiful Demons, I'm very proud of what I created with that book. But there's also a part of me that goes, oh my gosh, look how far I've come. Like, look at the junior style writing in that book, or look at, you know, some of the way I put my sentences together, or how simple the story is, or whatever. And then I look at book 10 of my series and I see just how far I've come with multiple POV and switching chapters and the world building and just even sentence structure and dialogue. But I guarantee you that 5 or 10 books from now, I'm going to look back at that book 10 and go, oh my gosh, look at all these mistakes that I made, because we're constantly learning and constantly growing. And that's one of the things that I love about this, not only the craft of writing, but also, like I said, the business of being an indie author. There is always more to learn. And I am the kind of person who always loved school, to the point where when the Harry Potter series first came out, I literally had more than 5 people who contacted me and said, you have to read this series, because there's a character inside this series named Hermione that is literally you. Like, legitimately, this is you as a child, because she raises her hand, she knows all the answers, she studies all the extra books. That was totally me growing up. And that's me now. As an author, I love to read. I love to take more courses. I'm always reading more books on craft and trying to get better, but I'm also always taking business courses and reading books by Marie Forleo and James Clear, and just tons of people who can teach me not only more about how to be a better writer, but also how to be a better businesswoman, how to be a better person all the way around, so that I can get over past traumas or abuse, so that I can understand what's holding me back. So self-help type books are also important in the process of becoming a writer, because the mental side of being a published author is almost more important than the marketing side of things, which I could also do a video on that if you guys would like to see more. But I love the fact that writing and the process of writing, whether you're doing it as a career or just as a hobby, is something that is constantly challenging you. And it's something that you could just continually and perpetually learn, because the more you learn, the more there is to learn. And I just absolutely love that, because it's like being a student for the rest of your life, and it's just feels good to always have that challenge. The final reason on my list today, the number 6 reason, like I said, no particular order. This is one that is part of my fundamental core values as a person and as an author, and that is community. One of the things that I love the most about being an author is the community that you can build, not only around your books. Like, I have a Facebook group around my books and my career called Sarra Cannon's Coven over on Facebook. You guys are welcome to join. I will link it down below, but I would love for you to have at least read one of my books before you join, because we don't talk about like stationery and writing and stuff in that group, because it's not a group of writers. It's mostly a group of readers, and we talk more about books and things we love about reading. So if you're a reader and you also have read some of my books, please come join us. It would be a great place for you to hang out. I absolutely love that community. There are some people in that group that are new to me, but there are also people in that group that feel like family, because they've been a part of my writing community and my fan community for, 10 years or almost 10 years. And I love them like their family. I know things about their kids and what's going on in their lives, and whether they're having surgery, or they've just had another baby, or what types of books they love. And getting that involved with my fans is one of the most important things to me. I love that. And I actually have some pretty crazy ideas coming up for what I want to do later this year, and potentially into 2021 or beyond if it works out, that is really centered around community and kind of publishing my books and doing some things in a new way, because I do realize just how important community is to me. So stay tuned for some maybe news about that if you guys are interested in some hopefully innovative ways to run your writing career. But I also have to say that it's more than just the reader community or the fan community that I have loved about being a writer. It's also the writing community. I absolutely love being a part of the writing community, and and, you know, through NaNoWriMo, where I have met some of the best friends of my life, through Heart Breathings, where I have met so many of you through my courses and gotten to know you better on Instagram or here in the comments, because you're always commenting and we can talk back and forth, and I'm starting to get to know more about you. I love that sense of community. It truly is part of my core values, and it's just one of those things where I feel like we as humans are always looking for ways to belong to something, ways to know that we're important. And it's so important to me to foster and become a part of those communities where people feel respected and loved and heard and included. And that is super important to me. And it's something I feel like we can build through writing books in a way that other people can't in other communities. So community is one of the things that I love most about being a writer. All right, guys, that is all I have for you today. That is my list of 6 things that I love most about being a writer. I probably could also rattle off about 1,000 other reasons, but those are really, for now, at the very top of my list. And let me know in the comments if you feel the same way about writing or any one of those particular things. If there's anything else that would absolutely go on your list of things you love most about being a writer. If I had to add a 7th, and something that's also super important, is I'm super grateful and very excited about the fact that I get to support my entire family as a full-time writer. When I first started writing, I honestly had no idea if I would ever be able to make any money doing this, or if I would ever find any success or community or any of that. I was just doing it because I loved it. And so looking back on the last 10 years, if you watch my video recently about how much money have I made self-publishing, or how I changed my life in the last decade, I have a couple of those videos for you down below. You will see instances and stories of really how writing has changed my life, not only for me, but for my entire family. So the 7th one, if I had to add that extra one, is just feeling super grateful that I actually get to make a living doing this. And I know just how lucky I am. And I know that there are so many of you out there who are either doing it too, or are really looking forward to a day when you can support yourself and your family through your writing. And I just want you to know that I believe in you and that it is possible. So don't give up on those dreams, because you can do it. All right, that's all I have for you. I hope that if you are new to this channel, you will go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so that you'll be notified when new videos come up from me. And I hope that you guys have an awesome weekend. I love you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.